One doesn't do existential therapy as a freestanding separate theory. Rather, it informs your approach to such issues as death, which many therapists tend to shy away from. Hello everyone, my name is Blessed Archell Obregon, and the topic that I am about to discuss in this presentation is the application of existential therapy with regards to its therapeutic techniques and procedures. Also, I will be scrutinizing existential therapy in a multicultural perspective. My topic outline will be application, therapeutic techniques, and procedures. First is the phases of existential counseling. Next is clients appropriate for existential counseling. Then we have application for brief therapy. And lastly, we have application to group counseling. Another is that existential therapy from a multicultural perspective. In here, we have strengths from a diversity perspective and shortcomings from a diversity perspective. For our intended learning outcome, at the end of the discussion, we are expected to be able to scrutinize the application of therapeutic techniques and procedures and discuss the existential therapy from a multicultural perspective. Van Geers in 1997 reminds us that existential therapy is a collaborative adventure in which both client and therapist will be transformed if they allow themselves to be touched by life. So the question here is that what makes the application of existential therapy unique from other kind of therapy? You see, unlike the other therapies, the approach in existential therapy is actually not a technique oriented, so meaning the interventions used in the therapy are based on the philosophical views about the nature of human existence. Even though they are free to draw from techniques that flow from many other orientations, they don't just employ an array of unintegrated techniques. So, as they have a set of assumptions and attitudes that guide their interventions with clients. Hence, we can grasp the idea that these existential practitioners prefer description, understanding, and exploration of the client's subjective reality as opposed to diagnosis, treatment, and prognosis. Let us take, for instance, Van Derzen's 1997 identifies as a primary ground rule to existential work the openness to the individual creativity of the therapists and the clients. So she maintains that existential therapists need to adapt their interventions to their own personality and style as well as being sensitive to what each client requires. The main guideline is that the existential practitioner's interventions are responsive to the uniqueness of each client. So, Van der Zin, 2002, believes that the starting point of existential work is for practitioners to clarify their views on life and living. She stresses the importance of therapists reaching sufficient depth and openness in their own lives to venture into clients' murky waters without getting lost. So, the nature of existential work is assisting people in the process of living with greater expertise and ease. So to which sums up to the belief that when the deepest self of the therapist meets the deepest part of the client, the counseling process is at its best. Okay, now let us move on to the phases of existential counseling. First and foremost, let us be aware that existential counseling has three distinct phases, namely initial, middle, and the final phase. We cannot neglect the fact that indeed therapy is a creative, evolving process of discovery that can be conceptualized in three general phases. Primarily, in the initial phase of counseling, clients are basically invited to define and question the ways in which perceive and make sense of their existence. This involves examining their values, beliefs, and assumptions to determine their validity. This type of task is at some point actually difficult and or hard to some clients due to the circumstances that they somehow may initially present their problems as resulting almost entirely from the external causes. So meaning to say, these clients are more focused on what other people make them feel or on how others are largely responsible for their actions or inaction. Mainly in the initial phase, the counselor teaches the clients on how to reflect on their own existence and to examine their role in creating their problems in living. The next one, in the middle phase, after the clients has learned on how to reflect on their own existence and has somehow examined their role in creating their problems in living, they are then encouraged to more fully examine the source and authority of their present value system. So this process of self-exploration typically leads to new insights and some restructuring of values and attitudes. So, in this phase, the individuals might get a better idea of what kind of life they consider worthy to live and develop a clearer sense of their internal valuing process. In the final phase, we can comprehend that transformation is not limited to what takes place during the therapy hour. When we say therapeutic hour, it is a small contribution to a person's renewed engagement with life or a rehearsal for life. So, moreover, the aim of therapy is to enable clients to find ways of implementing their examined and internalize values in a concrete way between sessions and after therapy has been terminated. In this phase, clients typically discover their strengths and find ways to put them to the service of living a purposeful existence. In this slide, we have clients appropriate for existential counseling. So, after discussing the three general phases of existential therapy, let us now proceed on knowing what makes the clients appropriate for existential counseling. So, Van der Zin suggests that this form of therapy is most appropriate for clients who are committed to dealing with their problems about living, for people who feel alienated from the current expectations of society, or for those who are searching for meaning in their lives. According to my research, the list that follows are the ones who are considered as appropriate for this type of counseling. So we have nine. So people who are coping with developmental crisis, people who are experiencing grief and loss, people who are confronting death, people who are facing a major life decision, people who are struggling for identity in adolescence, people who are coping with possible disappointments in middle age, parents who are adjusting to children leaving home, people who are coping with failures in marriage and work, and lastly, we have people who are dealing with increased physical limitations as one ages, and the list goes on and on. All that have been mentioned above are some of the developmental challenges which involves both dangers and opportunities. Furthermore, uncertainty, anxiety, and struggling with decisions are all part of this process. Hence, existential therapy tends to work well with people who are at a crossroads and who question the state of affairs in the world and are willing to challenge the status quo. It can be useful for people who are on the edge of existence, such as those who are dying or contemplating suicide, who are working through a developmental or situational crisis, and who feel that they no longer belong in their surroundings or who are starting a new phase in life. Brock 1992 assert that the value and vitality of a psychotherapy approach depend on its ability to assess clients in dealing with the sources of pain and dissatisfaction in their lives. So they contend that the existential orientation is particularly suited to individuals who are experiencing a lot of sense of identity. So this approach offers promise for individuals who are struggling to find meaning or who complain of feelings of emptiness. Proceeding to our next slide, we have the application to brief therapy. So, how can the existential approach be applied to brief therapy? So, the answer to this question is that this approach can focus clients on significant areas such as assuming personal responsibility, making a commitment to deciding and acting, and expanding their awareness. It is basically possible for a time-limited approach to serve as a catalyst for clients to become actively and fully involved in each of their therapy sessions. Strasser and Strasser 1997, who are connected to the British School for Existential Analysis, maintain that there are clear benefits to time-limited therapy, which mirrors the time-limited reality of human existence. So Sharp and Bugental 2001 maintained that short-term applications of the existential approach requires more structuring and clearly defined and less ambitious goals. So, at the termination of the short-term therapy, it is important for individuals to evaluate what they have accomplished and what issues may need to be addressed later. It is essential that both the therapist and client determine if short-term work is appropriate and if beneficial outcomes are likely. Next, we have the application to group counseling. So, an open attitude towards life is essential as it is the willingness to explore unknown territory. Recurring universal themes evolve in many groups and challenge members to seriously explore existential concerns such as choice, freedom and anxiety, awareness of death, meaning in life, and living fully. An existential group can be described as people making a commitment to a lifelong journey of exploration with the following goals. So first we have enabling members to become honest with themselves. Next is widening their perspective on themselves and the world around them. And lastly is clarifying what gives meaning to their present and future life. Yalom 1980 contends that the group provides the optimal conditions for therapeutic work on responsibility. The members are responsible for the way they behave in the group, and this provides a mirror for how they are likely to act in the world. Through feedback, members learn to view themselves through others' eyes, and they learn the ways in which their behavior affects others. So, building on what members learn about their interpersonal functioning in the group, they can take increased responsibility for making changes in everyday life. Excuse. The group experience provides the opportunity to participants to relate to others in meaningful ways, to learn to be themselves in the company of other people, and to establish rewarding, nourishing relationships. In existential group counseling, members come to terms with the paradoxes of existence. So, the life can be undone by death, that success is precarious, that we are determined to be free, that we are responsible for the world we did not choose, and that we must make choices in the face of doubt and uncertainty. Members experience anxiety when they recognize the realities of the human condition, including pain and suffering, the need to struggle for survival, and their basic fallibility. So clients learn that there are no ultimate answers for ultimate concerns. So although they confront these ultimate concerns, they cannot conquer them. So through the support that is within a group, participants are able to tap the strength needed to create an internally derived value system that is consistent with their way of being. A group provides a powerful context to look at oneself and to consider what choices might be more authentically one's own. Members can openly share their fears related to living in unfulfilling ways and come to recognize how they have compromised their integrity. So basically, members can gradually discover ways in which they have lost their direction and can begin to be more true to themselves. Members learn that it is not in others that they find the answers to questions about significance and purpose in life. Existential group leaders help members live in authentic ways and refrain from prescribing simple solutions. Okay, now let us discuss existential therapy from a multicultural perspective. So, Von Tres 1996 points out that all people are multicultural in the sense that they are all products of many cultures. He encourages counselors in training to focus on the universal commonalities of clients first and secondarily on areas of differences. So, due to the broad perspective of existential therapy and does not dictate a particular way of viewing and relating to reality. So it has been highly relevant in working a multicultural context. In here, if people are unable to find harmony and the meaning of life, they are to examine their behavior from cultural and societal perspective. So, Von Tres and colleagues, 1999, write about the existential foundation of cross-cultural counseling. Existential counseling is probably the most useful approach to helping clients of all cultures and find meaning and harmony in their lives because it focuses on the sober issues each of us must inevitably face, such that of love, anxiety, suffering, and death. So this basically means that diverse clients are the most applicable ones treated by means of existential therapy from the point of view of multicultural perspective. Given the fact that existential therapy can be of great help to clients, most especially in multicultural perspective, we can still could not just set aside the fact that it has its strengths and shortcomings. Now, let us first know what are the strengths of existential therapy from a multicultural perspective. First is it enables clients to examine the degree to which their behavior is being influenced by social and cultural conditioning. Next, we have clients can be challenged to look at the price they are paying for the decisions they have made. Another one, we have their freedom can be hindered by institutions and limited by their family. And lastly, we have there is a wide-ranging international approach, interest in the existential approach, and plans to create an international society. Existential therapy can support an individual with a wide range of issues and lets you be in control of your therapy process. While your therapist will be there to support you every step of the way, your successes are the result of the work that you put in. So, in fact, there are now several Scandinavian societies, a thriving East European society, and Mexican and South American societies. So, in addition, an internet course, Septimus, is taught in Ireland, Iceland, Sweden, Poland, Czech Republic, Romania, Italy, Portugal, and the United Kingdom. So these international developments reveal that existential therapy has wide appeal to diverse populations in many parts of the world. So basically, existential therapy also helps in establishing strategies to identify and overcome the client's fear. So it helps the client to feel a greater sense of personal responsibility and self-determination, and that it will be of great help in developing a greater sense of self and understanding the role of the client in their recovery. Here are some of the shortcomings of existential therapy in diversity perspective. In many cultures, it is not possible to talk about the self and self-determination. Some individuals who seek counseling may operate on the assumption that they have very little choice because environmental circumstances severely restrict their ability to influence the direction of their lives, and a major challenge facing the counselor using an existential approach is to provide enough concrete direction for these clients without taking the responsibility away from them. For those who hold a systematic perspective, the existentialists can be criticized on the grounds that they are excessively individualistic and that they ignore the social factors that cause human problems. Many clients expect a structured and problem-oriented approach to counseling that it is not found in the existential approach, which places the responsibility on the client for providing the direction of therapy. So some individuals who seek counseling may operate on the assumption that they have very little choice because environmental circumstances severely restrict their ability to influence the direction of their lives. So even if they change internally, they see little hope that the external realities of racism, discrimination, and oppression will change. They are then likely to experience a deep sense of frustration and feelings of powerlessness when it comes to making changes outside of themselves. And so, if a counselor is too quickly to put across the message to these clients that they have a choice in making their lives better, so they may feel patronized and misunderstood. So these real life concerns can provide a good focus for counseling. So assuming that therapist is willing to deal with them. So although clients may feel better if they have an opportunity to talk and to be understood, they are likely to expect the counselor to do something to bring about a change in their life situations. For our summary, the main idea of the existential therapy is to show that human behavior cannot be grouped by any particular model, as people are free in their actions, decisions, and choices, and therefore they are responsible for what they do. That ends my report. Thank you all for listening.